2, 1. Okay, we're live.
Oh,
how's our technology working? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you see me?
I can see you.
Awesome.
You look so radiant today.
I know, right? Not bad after an hour and a half temper tantrum with my 5-year-old this morning.
Oh, yeah. Well,
much better.
You have a 5-year-old, and I have a 8-year-old dog that acts like it's 18 months old.
We all have our challenges, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to open up and welcome everyone. I'm Christine George from Remax Leading Edge, and I have the pleasure of speaking with Paul Mydelski today. Just to remind everyone, this is a monthly broadcast. This is the Remax Leading Edge Success Series. It's a live broadcast on our Facebook page. We do it the last Wednesday of every month. So thanks for tuning in. If you are watching us live, let us know you're here. Give us a shout out, comment or share. And if you're watching it on recording, we'd love to hear from you there as well. So I'm honored today to be talking to the Remax Leading Edge founder and chairman, Paul Mydelski. He's got a great story, and not too many people know the whole story, so I'm excited to bring it to everybody live today. So welcome, Paul.
Oh, welcome. It's nice to be here.
And we're coming to you live from our Winchester office.
Very
on this gorgeous
live. On Facebook Live.
We're on Facebook Live, and I think this is your first Facebook Live, right?
It is my first Facebook Live.
Awesome.
When you said I was thinking, well, some likes would be great.
Some likes would be great.
Likes would be great.
Absolutely. So Paul, you and I have known each other, I think, going on 10 years now, almost 10 years.
That's right.
And you had kind of an interesting start. And so I don't think a lot of people know actually about your start, even before Remax Leading Edge. So why don't you take us all the way back to the beginning and start from the beginning and tell us how you got to where you are today.
The beginning of my career.
You can start from infancy if you want to. So it's totally up to you.
Yeah, I'll shed a little bit of history on that. I went to school wanting to be a professional photographer. That was what my dream was when I was a teenager. And as life can have it, I had a change in direction shortly after graduating from photography school and studied how to become a professional photographer. And I ended up going to work in the absolute opposite direction. I went into the airline industry. There I thought I was going to be in a creative world, be an independent person, doing art and photography. And I went into the airline business, and I worked in the early 1980s, right after deregulation, for an airline called New York Air. It's no longer in existence, but it was a regional carrier that was an upstart in 1981 that became a regional carrier of jets throughout the Northeast, as far as Chicago and as south as Florida. Why I tell you that story is I was in the operations side of the business. So I wasn't in the customer service, sales and ticketing that probably most consumers or travelers deal with. I was in the back end or the back office working on the operations side of that business in station management and operations. The person that I reported to is a guy named David Barger, and David Barger is the founder of JetBlue. I reported directly to him for 3 years. And that guy taught me a lot about what we do at Remax Leading Edge, and as far as how I am involved in running this operation. A lot of the foundation and the things that I learned from that experience and working in that industry for 4 years are things that we practice today. So after working in a very structured, very corporate airline world, and it's a very serious business because you're carrying people's lives, and you've got these multi-million dollar airplanes And so everything is on a very serious level. I decided to leave that industry, and I got into the music business, which is a complete shift again.
Yeah,
so there I went
from 180.
Total 180. And I went into management and ownership of a nightclub in Cambridge. And I did that for the next 5 years, and had a restaurant and a nightclub. We did 250 live dates a year of live music, and we also had a restaurant attached. And then from there, I went on to run a restaurant myself for 2 years in Nantucket. And after the second year, I decided that it was time to get out of the restaurant business. It was just really difficult. And in those days, running a restaurant in Nantucket was a little bit different than it is now. Now it's more of a year-round operation, and I was more of a seasonal operation. My next door neighbor, who was an agent in the late 1980s and early 1990s in Cambridge, who I had known for about 10 years. I came back from Nantucket in the late fall. I didn't know what my next journey in life was. And she said to me, you know, I'm having a blast in this real estate business. I think you'd be great at it. I think you should get into it. I thought about it, and I went out and I got my license. And then I went into one real estate office. It was a small independent office in Cambridge on my way to the bank one day. And I said, hey, if I wanted to come work here, can I come work here? And they had 3 people in the firm, and they said, of course. So that's where I started my real estate career at a company called Agatha Marple Realty, which is no longer in existence. It was acquired by Coldwell Banker years ago. But I work for a woman by the name of Patty Brainerd, who is an agent at Coldwell Banker in Cambridge today. Yeah. Patty Brainerd and Bill Long, terrific people. And they started me off in the real estate business. I worked on the, again, sort of a unique niche side of the business. I did foreclosure or REO for my first 5 years. And then I went on to do traditional real estate and residential real estate in Cambridge and surrounding areas. In 1998, I decided to go out on my own. I wanted to be independent, be an entrepreneur, wanted to be a leader, opened a Prudential franchise, and learned a lot of lessons. I actually failed in that franchise, owned it for almost 3 years, and in my third year, realized that my business plan wasn't working. Prudential as a brand was going through a lot of changes at that point, and I couldn't grow the company. I was still listing and selling real estate, and decided to step away from that, and sold my interest to my 2 partners at the time. And in July of 2001, I bought my first Remax franchise. And at the time it was Winchester. We had no office. I was working out of my house for that summer because we were looking for a location, and there were no storefronts or retail space available. And we actually opened our office with 4 agents and a administrator on September 10th, 2001, one day before 9/11.
Yeah.
9/11 was our second day in business in an office for Remax Leading Edge.
Wow.
Still remember the day. It was a Tuesday, and on Tuesdays in Winchester, which still happens today, is Broker Tour Day. We went out on tour, which was early back then. It's a lot later then. Back then, it used to be at 9 a.m., and that was just about when things were starting to happen. Yep. And we were out on tour and realized that the day was shaping up to be a significant day. And we all dispersed and went home. And I didn't think we'd ever make it because we were a new office in town. I was not from Winchester. We had an office off the street, and that was probably my first real test of leadership, is keeping that all together, keeping our agents glued, upbeat, and rolling forward, because the world stalled, as everybody remembers that day. And we remember what the rest of September and October was like, and moving into the holidays that year. There were a lot of unknowns. The world has changed since then. So it was a very, very challenging period for Remax Leading Edge from then to now.
Yeah.
So that was really the beginning.
So you brought up a lot of great things that I actually want to touch on. The first one really is entrepreneurship. I want to talk a little bit about leadership because you mentioned that, lessons learned, challenges, but, as it relates to being an entrepreneur, you've got sort of two different sides of you. You've got this artistic side in your photography, your love for photography and your love of music. And you've got this other very analytical operational side of you. So that's kind of an interesting combination that a lot of people, especially in leaders, they don't have the two of them. So I think that's really unique to you. I'm curious, coming from the corporate world, what is it that, made you want to be an entrepreneur? Why go that entrepreneur route? You've obviously had a lot of challenges. You've taken a ton of risks. You've had some losses. What made you gravitate towards that direction versus staying on the more safe side of the corporate world?
That's a really good question. After 4 years of doing it, I mentioned David Barger. So my typical day was that, and this is really way back before PCs, is I couldn't go home without sending an operations report that was very detailed of all of the things that I was involved with for the day. And anyone that knows me, I'm pretty loose. I'm not very corporate. I wasn't then, but I was young and I was excited to be around that particular type of an industry. Because, it was aviation, it was airplanes, it was exciting. Everybody was young and had kind of a cool job. And I learned a lot. But I realized after a few years, I'm never going to work out in the corporate world. It's just not my thing. I need freedom. It's hard to be expressive. It's hard to grow. It's hard to have personal success without, going the corporate ladder. So that none of that was for me. And what I love about being an entrepreneurian is, every day I have to get up and think of all of the responsibility of moving the company forward. I have the ability, and I'm gifted to have people like yourself in the other ownership group of the company, and the staff that we have, and the talent, and that is awesome to have. I mean, it's an incredible bunch of people. But you get up every day and say, I got to move this business forward, and I love that challenge. I love the access of growth to that, my personal growth. That's been, very stimulating for me over the years. I did the same thing when I was in the music and the restaurant business too. You had to get up and you had to make it happen. I feel the same way about real estate. Yeah.
That's, I heard an agent say, Claire Dembowski, up on the North Shore, she said this to me one time. She said, Christine, every single day I wake up and I'm unemployed, so I have to go hunt for my business. And I think that that's a key ingredient to anybody who's an entrepreneur. That's a big motivating factor. So, and we all know around here that you're a little loose. You don't dress like a corporate businessman, which we love about you, and you're a great leader in terms of your flexibility, and you really know how to challenge people and motivate people as well. So
thank you for that.
We do love that about you. Absolutely. So just a reminder for those of you who have joined, we have a bunch of people on. Let us know you're here. Hi, Rosemary. It's great to see you on. We are live. I'm Christine George, and I'm with Paul Mydelski. We're from Remax Leading Edge, and this is the second of our live broadcast, Remax Leading Edge Success Series. So welcome, everybody. Let us say hello. Let us know you're here. So I want to just touch on that motivation piece for a second, because you said, every day that's kind of what motivates you to get up and think about how you can move the business forward. So what is it that really drives you to be successful? Nobody wants to fail, but what is that one piece in you that says, I'm going to be successful, that competitive nature? What is it that makes you want to be successful?
I don't know if it's, personally in my own spirit and my own mind, if it's competitive by nature. It's the sense of accomplishment. One of the things that I realized early on in my own personal development is that I felt that I had leadership skills and the ability to help other people and assist them with whatever they wanted to accomplish in life. And I've certainly tried to apply that with our company. In the early days, just trying to build the company and to surround myself with what I thought our culture should or would be. And the culture thing really has changed over the years, because you have an idea or you have a vision of what you want to accomplish. I'm going to open up a real estate company. This is the way it's going to be. And you really don't have all that much control over that. What really develops that are other people. You may have the idea, and you may have the chutzpah to go out and execute that idea. But when you bring a person like Christine George in, that changes things.
Sure.
So the idea of you and your being and your talent and what you present and you bring to the company really changes that. By nature, our business is very independent. And I've always liked that about the real estate business, working with independent contractors. That's what they are by nature. But they need guidance. If you're a 25-year veteran or you have 25 minutes in this business, you need something. And I've always felt a large accomplishment in my life by being able to provide that. Now, if you fast forward 16 years of the history of this company and the age of this company, a lot of things have happened in, all that time. Families have started, babies have been born that are now in college. Yeah. Unfortunately, people have passed, that were agents in the company. So life, it happens, and it's been very rewarding to watch that aspect of our business. And as it has grown.
I think that's really a great point. And I came from the corporate world, as you know, and while it has its rewards, I've never experienced anything like I have in the real estate business. There's a sense of family and a sense of community that you have in this business. And people, once you get in it, it sort of gets in your blood, and you just, it's like you can't leave. And so you end up being in this business for a long period of time. And like you say, people come and go, and they get married and they have babies, and their babies, get married. I mean, we had one of our own staff members, get married, whose dad is in the business, right? And, started with you many years ago. So that's a real, that's just such a nice sense of connection that you get, that you don't get everywhere. And I also think you don't get it necessarily in every company. I think Remax Leading Edge is unique in that aspect.
I'd like to think that we are. Culturally, you and I have both been in the corporate world at different parts of our lives, and you certainly, in most corporate atmospheres, they don't know anything about your family. Right? No. But in our world, and I think it's a combination of things. I think it's a combination of the people that this industry attracts, but I also think it's a combination of this company and the agent that it attracts. We are high-touch leadership and ownership. It is part of our culture. It always has been, and we like to be involved, and we like to see people grow, and you experience different things with them as that goes along.
Yeah, and it really it creates that attachment. So let's talk a little bit about leadership. Talk to me a little bit about what you see as the most important traits of a great leader.
Yeah. So recently there was a Simon Sinek one of his phrases, or whatever he calls them, the words of the day, that I really could relate to. And it was, there are two types of decisions, the good ones and the ones you learn from. and you know, when I started out in this business, I was clueless. I was a rookie, made up the best decisions that I could as I've gone along. Some decisions have been really good ones, and I've learned from some. Leadership, in my mind, is the ability to, you have to have a strong soul behind you and say, you know, I want to do this and I have the courage to do it and I'm willing to take the risk. But you have to have certain skill set behind that. You need to be able to make decisions and stand behind them. I believe you need to surround yourself with people who can help you through the process, your team. I think you have to have great communication skills. You have to be an excellent listener. And as you hopefully would express, collaboration. We collaborate a lot. You know, look, being a leader is sometimes just dreaming up the ideas. It doesn't mean that I'm responsible for the follow through of the idea or even the execution of it. So I think those are really qualities of being a good leader.
So I heard you say you need to have courage, and I think that's really important because you do have to make some difficult decisions from time to time. And that takes a lot of courage. But the three that really resonate with me are communication, great listening skills, and collaboration. And I think that's important because I think at the end of the day, people want to feel ownership, and they want to know, they need to feel acknowledged. And we certainly, you know, experience that every day with our agents, for sure. But, you know, as long as you can listen and sort of be curious, you may not always make the decision that people want to hear, but at least they've been heard. You know, and I think that that's really important as a leader, for sure.
Well, I think in our company, one of the things that agents thrive for, you know, that they want from us as leaders in Remax Leading Edge is they want to be heard, and they want, you know, and listen, we don't have all the answers. We do a lot of things well. There's always room for improvement, and we're constantly striving for it. But you have to have an open ear to understand what other people can bring to the table and what their thoughts are around that. And we're always open to that. We, you know, as I said earlier, we're high touch leadership, but also willing to look at how somebody else sees something and saying, yeah, you know, that's a really good idea. We can make that happen.
Yeah, it's always being open to seeing things through different eyes or a different lens. I think it just gives you a completely new perspective and a great canvas for making, you know, even better decisions.
Yeah.
So tell me the name of a leader, living or dead, that you really admire. And you might have a couple, but what comes to mind?
That's a tough question because there's so many people to reflect on. You know, there's one person that I've been paying a lot of attention to over the last few years, and it's Elon Musk. I don't know if it's his leadership in the sense of what we've just been talking about, but he has a different type of leadership, and that's more of, you know, by trade or nature or by education, he's an engineer. That's what he was. Yeah. But now he is more of a global visionary. And what's really fascinating, well, first of all, he makes really awesome cars, you know, and like anybody that makes a lot of money, they all want to be in the space business, like Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson, Elon Musk, you know, they all want to get back onto that space journey, you know, because that's a really important part of, you know, who we are and what might be next.
Yeah.
But what I have really found fascinating about Elon Musk is his sense of design, I mean, if you look at the cars he makes, they are pretty outstanding in their design, their performance, and they sell like crazy at $100,000, which is really, really interesting, for a car. But the thing that I think he's onto right now that's fascinating to me is the energy, and he's working on perfecting battery. And think about batteries. Batteries are in everything. They're in lots of things in your house. He's trying to design a battery for ancillary services at home, or to be able to go off the grid and use a battery instead of electricity companies or electric companies or power companies. Your car, your phone.
Yeah.
In the perfection of that is really quite an amazing thing. Because it's energy. It's something that we will use more of as automation becomes advances. So I've been following him. So again, I don't know if he's a leader, in the classic sense, but I like that guy.
So
he's doing a lot of cool things.
He's really an innovator, and I think that speaks a lot to, what you are as well. I mean, always looking beyond what's possible. And I think, he represents that. So yeah, he's a great example. Let's talk a little bit about Remax Leading Edge. We are the fourth largest brokerage in Massachusetts. Woohoo! We are the largest Remax franchise in New England. We have 12 offices and 215 agents. We have #1 market share in Melrose, Reading, and Winchester. We've got some great power agents in our business, and we've also got some amazing individual and team contributors as well. Really people with a lot of integrity. I think we have a lot to be proud of. So I guess my question to you would be, back in 2001, on September 10th and September 11th, when you started this, did you ever envision being at this point? Do you ever look back and just, say, oh my God, look what I've built?
Heck no. That's the real answer. Did I dream about it? Yes. Because, back then, the persons who on a local level we had to look up to as real estate agents, and what I sort of focused on, there was Dick Carlson from Carlson Real Estate. There was Dick DeWolf from the DeWolf companies. There was Jack Conway, which is still in business. Saul Cohen had started Hammond. And they were the local players. And I just wanted to be in that kind of environment. I thought, wow, could I ever be, playing in the same sandbox as those guys someday? Yeah. I dreamed about it, but I really had no idea that we would have. I am so proud of this company and what we have accomplished. I had no idea, though.
What are you most proud of?
The people, because, it's interesting. I think of the real estate industry very much the pioneer industry of the shared economy. And I can explain that later if you want, but it's a bunch of people that have come together and it has a common cause, and it really is what makes the company. Yeah. We don't sell merchandise. We don't make a product. Yeah. And the people are really what it's all about. Yeah. And that's what I'm most proud of is that. And you're right. I'm not terribly corporate. My leadership skills may not be apparent to people on how I try to work that every day, but. And I probably don't communicate as well. We were talking about communication earlier. How proud I am of all of that. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. I think you said something about dreaming, and it made me think of a teacher that I had in high school. It was actually my driver's ed teacher, of all things. And the one thing that I remember about driver's ed, and hopefully I remembered a few other things, I've been driving for a while, but the one thing that he said to us at one day was, you need to aim high, you know? So don't be looking right in front of you. You need to aim high to see what's up ahead of you. And
Sure.
I think that is it's always stuck with me, not only from the driving perspective, but, philosophically as well. It's like you've got to be a dreamer. You've got to aim high, and if you want to be able to achieve your dreams, you've got to see beyond, like I said before, what's possible, and actually get up every day and do the work to get there. And it can be frustrating sometimes, but if you persist and you keep at it, it's amazing. Look what you've created here. So I want to shift a little bit. I'm going to read you a quote. So you started to talk a little bit about the industry, and the industry, I've only been around for 10 years, and I've seen unbelievable changes. Technology has made things so unbelievably easy for the consumer, and it's disrupted a lot of our agents. It's disrupted the industry, things like, all of the portals, the iBuyer platforms like Open Door,
Sure.
Zillow's Instant Offers. Bob Goldberg, who just took over as CEO of NAR, he had his leadership conference in Chicago a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to read you a quote. He said, we as an industry tend to take change and look at it like, oh my God. And the reality is we have to be fearless as opposed to fearful. And so my question to you is, do you agree with him? Do you see all of this change and all this evolution as disruption, or do you see it as opportunity?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I did read the blog or newsfeed about that quote. I saw that on Inman, actually. And I do agree with him. There's always disruption. There will continue to be. I've been in the business for just over 25 years, and I would agree with you, in the last 10 years, there's been a whole lot more change than the first 15 years. But some things haven't changed very much at all. So I would say that you can't be fearful of the real estate business. You do need to be fearless. There's lots of opportunity out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say, when you're most afraid, you always just have to ask yourself, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? So instead of, trying to ignore or pretend these things don't exist or fight against them, spend your energy doing what you do best, and that's bringing value to your business.
So I do remember in the early 1990s, before I actually had a computer, the internet was now building, day to day, month to month, year to year. Most people didn't have a computer at that point. There was a fear of our industry being absorbed by the internet. That much like the travel business, travel agent business has, with the exception of specialty travel like cruise or safari or around the world travel. Back in those days, you had, in every little town in America, there was a travel agency, and you went in there to book your airline and your hotel and your cruise, and that's all automated now. But so are listings, but our business still has another aspect of it that is not.
Yeah.
And that's the service part of it. So,
absolutely.
So, there's always been disruption as long as I've been in the business, and there's always been different things to be fearful of. And there will be tomorrow. Yeah,
I think service is important. I heard an agent actually make a great analogy the other day. She said, there's the Amazon shopping experience, and then there's the Nordstrom shopping experience. And anybody can go on Amazon and get whatever you need. But when you're looking for real customer service, when you're looking for an expert to help you with a purchase, you're going to go to Nordstrom, and that's always going to exist. And so I think that applies to our industry as well. So how, in your in your opinion, how is Remax Leading Edge going to continue to be competitive, and how are we going to position ourselves for this continued evolution that's happening in our business?
That's a really interesting question. And the two things that pop to mind is, well, one, we're challenged by automation. We're challenged by the change of technology and things working differently, hopefully better. That we have more data, we have more accessibility. The consumer knows a lot more about our business than they did when I started in it. Well, one thing that I think will be very important moving forward is the service aspect. Talking about the change of business, and just going back to what we were talking about earlier about the shared economy, we don't have a product. Our product is real estate, but we don't own it. Like, with Airbnb, they don't own any hotel rooms, although they're the largest accommodator of hotel rooms in the world. So it's very similar to me in that aspect. So moving forward, I think in the future of our business, the challenges of automation will continue, and we will have to embrace them. Where I think that what I look at today is that human beings will still want service. These companies like Open Door who are trying to automate everything, I think they're a little bit further away than some people might, especially in this part of the country. That might work in Arizona where all the houses look the same and they're all built the same time, and they just have different amenities, size or bedrooms or, that sort of thing. We're having a little technical difficulties. You're fading a little.
I think we're okay now.
I think that's really hard to do in Greater Boston, where you have one house that could be 5 years old and another house that could be right next door to each other. So there's an aspect about that. But one thing that has not changed in 25 years, in my opinion, in this business, is the human factor. Consumers still want a human being. They still need local expertise. They want somebody that can negotiate for them and that will care for them and follow them through this major transaction or purchase. And that is service. And that has not gone away. And interestingly enough, the statistics around our company is that over 80% of our annual sales, we do over $1.4 billion worth of sales annually, about 2,500 transactions. Over 83% of those sales are repeat and referral business. They're established lines of business from relationships that people have. They're not from Zillow. They're not from the internet. They're mostly from relationships and service that an agent has provided. So I don't think that's going to go away in the short term in our business. You can automate a lot of things. Like the biggest change in probably the last 10 years has been Zillow, obviously. And the transaction management, the digital management of a transaction, electronic signature and the ability to capture all that digitally. But if you look at the other side of it, in a real estate transaction, there are things that they haven't figured out. Currency, for instance. They still have not figured out how to digitally do currency. That's the money. And you can't have a transaction without the money, and there's still a long way to go on that. So we have to embrace automation, and maybe in 10 years they'll figure out the currency thing. But I think the service is still something that people will want, especially when they get into higher purchase price homes. High-end or luxury homes, or everything in our area is high-end. I mean, it's all expensive. So that's what I think. I mean, it's not like it's going to be. We talk about driverless cars, and is that going to happen in 10 years? We're all going to be in a driverless car? I don't think so. It will be.
Yeah, no.
but I don't think we all will be. And it's the same with the real estate industry. Will the brokerage, the traditional brokerage, or the agent go away? I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think
I have to agree with you. Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think, it's the most personal, for most of us, it's the most personal and the largest investment people will ever make. And so they want to put it in the hands of someone who's going to, who knows, who has the wisdom and the experience, and who's going to guide them through the process. So brings me to my go ahead.
I was going to say, I was just studying, I was reading up on vacation rental business. And only 10 years ago, the first large website for a consumer to use to rent their vacation house was HomeAway.com, and then Vacation Rental by Owner, VRBO. Those were the two that came out just around 10 years ago. Well, I was looking at Cape Cod, and interestingly enough, this is a perfect example of the need of a real estate agent. 70% of the people who rent their homes on Cape Cod, and there's a lot of that stuff,
technical difficulties here,
still use an agent. They do not use HomeAway or VRBO or that sort of thing. An automated system that's there for them to use because they still want the service. You're there.
Are you there?
Yeah. I think maybe we should think about wrapping up if we're going to have technical difficulties.
We should. We're having a couple of technical difficulties. It might be because there's quite a few people on the internet here in the office, but let me just close by asking you one final question. That is, who's been the greatest mentor in your life and why?
Actually, the greatest mentor in my life has been my family, and the closeness of that. My mother in certain ways, my dad in certain ways, my sister in certain ways. I was just in Hawaii for a few days, and my wife is going through some family challenges right now, and I've been thinking about family a lot, and how important that is to all of us, and I feel that way about our business as well. So my family has been the mentor, and in the Hawaiian language, and as you know, I go to Hawaii quite a bit. There's a word called ohana, and what ohana means is family. And it's family is never forgotten and always included and never left out. So family is most important to me. And I've been traveling for the last few days, and that's why we had to delay this a day, and I'm very sorry about that. I apologize. But I also watch a lot of TV, and I watch a lot of news. I'm kind of a news junkie, fake or not. And I've been watching Hurricane Harvey. And I have to say, I want to send heart and thoughts and prayers out to all of the people in Texas and in the Houston area and now in Louisiana, because that's, family it's so incredible what's going on there right now, that the basic things of life about changing clothes to change into, or where your next meal is coming from, is really important. So I think family ohana is really my message.
Well, I think we had a little bit of technical difficulties there, but I did hear you say family. I know you talked about your wife and Scarlett specifically, who are amazing women. You actually have surrounded yourself with amazing, powerful women, Paul. You're very smart.
But it is so true. And I love you all for it.
Oh, that's so funny. But you kind of brought us full circle. We talked about this business and our company actually being a really tight-knit, close community of people like family. And so, I think that speaks to the culture of our company and to who you are. So thank you so much for taking the time with us today. Nancy Dowling actually is here as well. So hi, Nancy. So I hope you guys will join us next month, the last Wednesday of September. And if you're watching the recording, please like, share, and comment. And I hope you're all having a great day. And Paul, I'll see you in a couple minutes.
Thank you, Christine, and thank you to everyone else. I'm honored to have been able to share with you today. So thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.